Robert and Sarah, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. It means a lot to be able to come on here and talk a little bit about this graphic novel, and of course, Boris Karloff, the horror icon that he is to this day. Let's start with Sarah. What does it mean to you I mean, we're in 2024, and his name is still synonymous to being a horror icon, one of the you kind of almost the founding fathers in horror cinema.
It's a great honor. Truly, it is. I have such fun doing this. I meet new people all the time and hear their stories, and it's a great honor to be invited to your show.
And for Robert, tell me a little bit about what makes this story from Mary Shelley, and also mixing it now with the iconic film role, and to be able to put it into a graphic novel.
Yeah, I mean, we had done this once before, with a book called Bram Stoker's Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, and that went quite well. And we were like, okay, if we're going to do another one, it has to be Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, because that to me, and I've said this before, but he is the iconic vision of Frankenstein's monster, with all due respect to other actors who have portrayed the creature since. And we were lucky enough that Sarah was really excited to do this as well. And, Mary Shelley's novel has been adapted many different ways for film, but often, as is often the case with classic novels, the story is altered for the screen, and different things or changes are made. So what we endeavored to do was be very faithful to her novel in terms of the story and the plot, and have the iconic image of Boris Karloff in a new way. So yeah, it's just been really exciting to see it come to life. It's alive, no pun intended.
Completely, pun intended. Come on.
Okay, pun intended.
Sarah, tell me your reaction to seeing the artwork in this book, because a lot of us already know the story, of course, but I think where I was most impressed was the artwork with Carrie and Elle. It was a beautiful book to go through the story again, and to see, and then to be able to see your father's image throughout it. What did that mean to you?
Oh, the artwork is just absolutely magnificent. They've captured my father's image so beautifully, so perfectly. And I don't know how they managed to do so in so many different different parts of the story. And in each shot of my father, each drawing of my father is in every image. And it's just remarkable how these artists have, Carrie in particular, whom I've known for years, is a magnificent artist, and has done just a unique and perfect job of capturing my father in of course his iconic role, but certainly not in such a manner as it is done in this book. This book becomes, through the story, of course, of Mary Shelley, this book becomes an absolute page turner, because you can't imagine how even though you know the story, the way it's presented in this book, it becomes an absolute page turner as you read your way, not just reading your way, but looking at the artwork. It just keeps you on the edge of your seat. And it is the artwork that takes you from page to page, not just the storyline, because of course we know the storyline pretty well, but the artwork it just keeps you on the edge of your seat. It's wonderful. It's such a compliment to my father. He would be so gratified, so amazed at being, he's been gone 55 years, coming on to 56 years, and to have this much attention drawn to his portrayal of this well-known story and to have such a book that will draw the fans to it for generations still to come because of this artwork in this book. It really is a page turner. As familiar as the story is, the artwork will absolutely captivate the fans, and I'm just bowled over by it, and so flattered and so pleased that they've undertaken and succeeded in portraying my father in his iconic starring role.
Yeah, I really feel like it's a must-have for horror fans, just because you need to have that on your mantle in order to showcase it. I think at the same time as maybe watching the film or even just enjoying the book, or just actually a really good entry for maybe a younger person to get into the books. But it's because you have the iconic face of Boris on it that probably will draw you in a little bit more than just the words, because let's be honest, reading with the younger generation not necessarily the strongest suit. What do you guys hope to accomplish with this graphic novel, Robert?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think it is a gateway potentially for someone who hasn't read the novel, as the Dracula book was. But if I can just pick up on what Sarah was saying, all compliments to Carrie Gamble and Al Gehring. Carrie also on this one, specifically on the Frankenstein book, he really wanted to take on the adaptation as well as, be the lead artist, and figure out basically how to, tell the story faithfully, but within the amount of pages we had and the medium of comics, where you can take certain shortcuts and do certain things. Because both of the novels are quite complex, actually. Mary Shelley's novel as well as Bram Stoker's novel are quite complex. And I think that's part of why they endure. The points of view change quite a bit. There's quite a few characters and subplots, and as is the case with often with novels. So it's just making that all coherent in the graphic novel. So that was the goal. And Carrie took on the adaptation in terms of the story, and Al Gehring, they worked together on the previous book, and they each touch every page, and they just work very well, complement each other very well. So I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that as well, because the art is really the driving force. And as far as what we hope to accomplish, I mean, I've said this before and it's true. This book is our love letter to Boris Karloff. I mean, I've loved his work, not only in Frankenstein, but really all of his films. I mean, I think he had such an amazing body of work, all the way up to Targets with Peter Bogdanovich near the end of his career. And so, yeah, that was goal number one, to honor this amazing actor who we all love so much. And then, yeah, goal two you already touched upon, which is creating creating something new with him that old fans haven't seen before, which is a new vision of the creature, but also might bring in new fans, younger people who haven't necessarily even seen the movies, but they might read this book and discover him through this book. That would be amazing, and that's what I would hope for. So yeah, those were the lofty goals, and I'm just so glad we were able to accomplish it, and that Sarah's so happy with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's something that I'm doing with my daughter. She's turning 14 soon, but she's really into horror. So what we did is we were actually able, thanks to our local theater, we were actually able to watch Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, and The Mummy on the big screen. And it was a great conversation about what horror meant in that time period, and the actors, and watching the foundation of what came next. And so this graphic novel was a great also way to bring that up again, because you can't really appreciate a lot of the current things without knowing where you came from first. And I think that means a lot. Sarah, can you tell me a little bit about your father as far as the actor and his method and what you saw from him growing up?
Oh my goodness. My father openly said that he didn't think much of the method actors' methods. Uh, and he said he was more like, I think it was Alfred Lunt, who he quoted as saying, I approach the theater or my profession a bit like Alfred Lunt. He said, before going on stage, he waited for his cue, checked his fly, took a deep breath, and went on stage hoping not to bump into anybody. My father was a consummate professional. He knew his cue, he knew his lines, and then he hoped not to bump into anybody. Truly, truly. He was not a method actor. He was not an ad lib actor. He always knew his lines. He was always prepared, both in film and for on-stage work. He loved his profession. He always said that he was one of the luckiest people on the face of the earth for being able to spend his long and diverse career in doing something you truly loved and then be jolly well paid for it. He just felt so lucky to be able to pursue, spend his life pursuing a career that he loved more than anything. He was one of the founding members of the Screen Actors Guild. His card number was number 9. And he felt such a devotion to SAG and to his profession because SAG really was developed in order to and created in order to give up and coming actors a voice, to protect the rights, both professionally and personally, of up and coming actors and give them a voice to not have to work 20 hours a day as he did in the making of Frankenstein, to give them manner in which to express their needs, protect and their safety. Because, for instance, when he made Frankenstein, which was his 81st film, no one as he said, no one had seen the first 80, but it was not right that they didn't get any time breaks. They could literally work a 19, 20-hour day without any consideration for the actors themselves. They were just pieces of meat to the directors. And so he was passionate about the profession, but he felt the actors needed some rights, some protection. And everybody respected my father who worked with him, and everybody loved my father who knew him. And he just felt that he needed to do what he could do for the other actors coming up in that business. But he felt he was truly, truly lucky to spend his life doing something he loved. His career and his legacy is now protected by the fans. And he would be so amazed that at the length and breadth of his career and his legacy and the ginormous body of fans he has.
And yeah, he had such a long and illustrious really career, and like you're saying, really stood up for his fellow actors. What did these characters mean to him specifically afterwards? Because that was really in the 30s, and then he still had a very successful career after that. What did these monsters mean to him afterwards?
Well, he often said with tongue in cheek that the monster was his best friend because it certainly, that role made such a pivotal difference in his life, both personally and professionally. But it was his choice to only play the role 3 times because he felt such a loyalty and very protective of that role because of the difference it made to him. And he did not want to see it go down and become a laughing stock to what he felt were the direction the role was taking. He wanted the role, not just himself, to go out after 3 films. Didn't want to see it become the brunt of bad jokes, bad scripts, bad. Didn't like the idea of it becoming nothing but a stiffly walking idiot, cruel for the sake of cruelty. And he made the decision he would only play the monster the 3rd time and no more, because it was headed in the wrong direction, in his opinion.
The very, very, very smart. And I mean, all of these films that he did still revered to this day. So he obviously did the right thing. Robert, working with Dracula, working now with Frankenstein and the monster, what kind of appreciation have more, maybe because I'm pretty sure you already appreciated them before, did you gain by working on these projects?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I think for the novels, I had read the novels as most people have, but I hadn't reread them in quite a while before I started both of these projects. And I think a true appreciation for both novels, reading them and really having to not only read them, but like, okay, how are we going to adapt them? And with Dracula, I did more the adaptation on that one. Because they're so complex, but it's kind of amazing to me how intricate they are, really, considering how long ago they were written. And Mary Shelley, I always had an appreciation for, but I don't think I really totally realized how she really is the mother of science fiction. I mean, many people argue that Frankenstein is the first novel of science fiction, long before Jules Verne, long before H.G. Wells. And that she had this flash of genius that not only led to this novel at such a young age, but basically a genre, so that is something I hadn't fully appreciated, I think, until I started working on these projects. And one of the things oh, excuse me, I dropped something. One of these things I haven't discussed too much in talking about the Frankenstein graphic novel is we were fortunate enough, I was fortunate enough to connect with Sir Christopher Frayling, who's a very noted scholar, knighted scholar, film historian, and has done a lot of work on Frankenstein. Actually, is one of the experts on not only the novel but the Boris Karloff film. And he wrote a piece specifically for the book that's never been published before, talking about the novel and the movie. So I was really happy to have, that kind of scholarship and to be part of this graphic novel. And then as far as the actors, I mean, as I say, this is our love letter to Boris Karloff. I am a big fan and have been since I was a kid. But I think what I appreciate is really, the nuances of their faces and their likeness, and what makes it right, what makes it wrong, and having a better understanding of that, and just the honor and the responsibility I felt of, uh, taking their likeness and recreating these characters in a new way, in a different way, and getting that right to me was a huge responsibility. So I'm so happy that Sarah's so happy and that she feels her father would be happy. That means everything. That's all I needed to hear, and then to me it's a success. So yeah, I'm very pleased.
That's
I
great.
think
Go ahead.
I think the word complex is is so appropriate when you're dealing with these particular stories, because there are so many levels to the storyline in Frankenstein. You know, you could use so many adjectives and so many elements of our society, of our humanity, of our belief system. There's so many complex levels. And when you consider that Mary Shelley was just 16 years old when she wrote Frankenstein, and this story has so many applications and so many innuendos almost, and so many theories and belief systems that it investigates, that it's an amazing story when you investigate it and your own belief systems, as this story applies to. It's an amazing story. It's just not about some Hulk who goes around the countryside killing and maiming. It's a challenging story to think about and then to interpret up on the screen and in one's own mind when one reads it. And I think the graphics of this book are just brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and violate no crossing no lines, and it just adds to it, as I've said in this interview before. It just becomes a page turner, both intellectually and as you're looking at the graphics. It becomes a real page turner, and that can't be said of very many graphic novels. I thank you so much.
Yeah, this is very true. My final question, Sarah, I need to ask you because I recently was at Universal Studios and there's new merch featuring, you know, the character, the likeness of your father, and obviously they have the posters and banners honoring the films that came in the 30s and its impact. Now and then we have this new graphic novel, and no doubt down the line we're gonna get something else. Just because of that's how fundamental the impact of some of these films were to what horror is today and what it will continue to be. As audiences, as people discover your father's work, what is your hope that they take away from it?
From this particular piece of work?
Yeah,
Or,
this one and going forward.
I think
oh,
it's just in
I think
general, you know.
that's the individual. That depends on the individual and the depth of thought and feeling with which he comes to this book and leaves from this book. I think it's a very deep graphic novel, presented in a magnificent form and fashion in this particular book.
Sarah, and go ahead, Robert.
Oh, I was just going to add, you know, I think Karloff, you know, has endured. I mean, we're coming up on 100 years, you know, not too long from now, of his portrayal of the creature, and that's pretty remarkable. Here we are 100 years later, and I think what he did in Lugosi, they, you know, transcended performance, and they really became cultural icons, you know, and they. You know, but he wasn't just this one film. I mean, if you look at, there's so many great films of his you could point to in terms of Boris Karloff, you know, the Black Cat, the Body Snatchers, you know, the Targets. I mean, there's just so many amazing performances, so nuanced, you know, and he was just fundamentally, I think, a really fine actor, but he also is a cultural icon. So I think it will continue. I think you're right. You know, these images of him will endure, you know, forever and ever. And it's just great that we were able to do something new with Sarah's support, because without Sarah, we wouldn't have been able to have done this. And yeah, I'm just thrilled that we could bring something new to the table and keep the story going.
Yeah. Sarah, Robert, thank you so much for your time. I mean, I could talk you guys a year off for for a very long time because you know, this genre is very dear to me, and I'm hoping to pass it on just like the same way with my daughter, which I'm trying to do. And graphic novels like this help because the beautiful imagery and then just the gateway, that the doors it can open to film, to learning more about Boris and what he did, what he means to the community of actors, and how it relates to, you know, modern day. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I hope to one day get to talk to you guys again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was nice to meet you both.